Okay, so we are winding down to where there's only effectively 2 weeks left, right? We have that one day when we get back that we can still turn stuff in, we can still do some grading, but we're really not working with the clay construction anymore on our big projects. There's just not enough time left to have it construct it, have it dry out completely, bisque fire it, and then glaze it and glaze fire it. There's just not enough time left. And so as such, the bigger projects we've been working on, like the boxes, they should be drying out so we can get them fired, bisque fired, and we'll do the next glaze firing next week is the plan, to load it up and fire it on Tuesday and have it fire all day Wednesday, cool Thursday, out Friday, and then also for Monday for both A and B day classes, so you guys can get your stuff in class. That's our glaze firing schedule. That's what has to happen. Things to work with that, we do need to, well, this week we'll need to make sure we get stuff bisque fired and glazed. So if you had stuff like the plan was on the carts, drying out over the weekend, they're dry, I'll go ahead and put those in the kilns. If we get stuff made quickly, we can still do some more bisque firings as well. So in order to accommodate, I still want to work on some things. You know, I don't want to just have, you know, dead days the last 2 weeks, because that's not any fun. And so what we can do is we can do this. We can work with some smaller projects. That's where we have a medallion project. That's like this guy here. Notice it's just like a little a circle on that with a sculpture on it. That's kind of it has a three-dimensional quality to it that we're looking at. Other medallions that I have, this one was a completely carved out. So this one was an additive type of a thing where you place a little disc or a little platform, and then you put things on top of it and score and slipping and putting them in place and making some little sculptures. Layering works really, really well in that technique, and so as look at this one was an alternative approach to it. This one was just a straight cutout, but it has lots of detail to it to make it a little bit more interesting, to make it seem like there's had some time invested in it. And so this is the major idea with these medallions. What I mean by layering is this. If we're looking at this turtle sculpture here, you could probably guess a little bit on how it's made. But we have the disc down as layer number 1, and then the head and the feet and the tail is layer number 2, and then on top of that layer you put the shell on top of it. So there's actually 3 different levels that we're looking at: the medallion bottom surface, the feet and the head, and then the shell itself. And so that gives a 3-dimensional quality to it that we're looking for. And that's what I really like to have in this, is a 3-dimensional piece. Now, if you're going to do something with cutout that has lots of detail in it, something like this, that would work. If you just took a disc and then cut a hole in it, a circle, you know, not very interesting, takes 2 seconds to do. I am looking for this to take at least a day or 2 for your construction as we make those. And so those are the ideas on the medallion. Now, there are some other pieces that I looked at that would probably still work on this as far as a small sculpture. Here's an idea. There's this guy here. It's a small sculpture. The idea being, if it's small, it will dry out quickly. It can dry out like overnight. And then I can put it in the bisque kiln and fire it up and we'll be ready to go. And so this is a small sculpture, once again dealing with some additive sorts of things, where we have a base and then a little bit of a neck and then the head put on it here, on top of the base here, a little bit of a bottle shape, and then even some lettering putting on the front over here on that. So a small sculpture, that one would probably dry out fairly fast. This one came out of this firing, once again a small sculpture of just a little dragon type of a thing. That would work. You could put it on a medallion, right, on that sort of thing, but as a small sculpture, it also works. Dealing with the layering sort of things where we have the feet are added onto the body and the wings are added onto the body, the tail is added onto the body, the neck and the head added on top of the body too, so it has some 3-dimensional qualities to it. And so that's really what I'm looking for with this project. And so we'll have today to work on them for B-Day classes. You'll actually have 3 days to work on those, to have them work out okay. And so the plan is to work on them for 1 or 2 days, maybe 3, and then put them on the carts, have them dry out. We'll bisque fire them. They'll dry out over the weekend, bisque fire them. So next week, they'll come out of the kiln, and then we can put some paints on them. We'll use acrylic paints as our surface treatment on these ones, as opposed to glaze firing. Now, if they happen to get done in time and to where they're bisque fired, and you can put some glaze on, by all means we can put them into the glaze firing. But for the most part, the plan is to have them the surface decoration with the acrylic paints. And so that's kind of the idea of what it is we're working with this small sculpture or the medallion projects. It's about I think it's a 10-point assignment on those. Let me run through the how-tos on that one. Like I said, some of you may have guessed already. I'll grab some clay here on that. And so I just get a chunk of clay. That's probably a little bit much. And I don't need much more than this, right? There's really not much to this project because it's small. And so as far as the medallion goes, if you just take, that was kind of freaky here when I'm rolling it out on the camera. Wow. Roll it out so it's in a ball shape, and then you can just squish the ball down flat. If you wanted to make a rectangle or a diamond or something like that, that would work in making a medallion. That would be cool. Now the key on making this so it dries out quickly is going to be that it's a thinner project, okay? A 1/4 of an inch rule is definitely in application on here. That's the only thing I see maybe with this one, is the skull is a little bit thick. Maybe hollowing it out from the bottom would have been a better solution to make sure it's dry. They didn't have the constraints of time that we have when they made that sculpture. But there's ways you can make them thinner, and so that they'll dry out quickly with those. I'll probably have the fan on in the back room as well to dry things out a little bit faster for us on those. Okay, so I'm just squishing it out into where it's into a circle. Pretty simple on that one. You could roll out a slab and then cut the slab out into the shape you want. That would work too. With this structure, if you're really comfortable with slabs and you like to do that sort of thing. But the pinch method works really well on this. Now with that small amount of clay, you'll notice I made quite a big piece on that one. These will shrink down in size as you try to make them work for you, and so be aware of that. It can be about this size. A lot of times this is easier to work with. It can be smaller too. I'm looking for detail, and I'm looking for 3 layers on this. Here's layer number 1 that we have going on that. So I'm looking for 3 layers that we have. So be thinking about what you want to do. You can do anything that you've probably seen there, or you may have some ideas on your own. Animals are always really cool to do with this project. And so there we go. We have a little bit of a flat disc ready to go. A little bit less than a 1/4 of an inch, and so that's going to be my base. That's going to be layer 1. Now, if I'm wanting to make something like this, was kind of a cool piece here. This was a student idea, some sort of a shark or a fish of some sort with that. If I was making this one, I'd probably roll out the coil for the body, add on the tail, add on the fins, and add on the dorsal fin on the back side, something like that. So let's say that I wanted to make something like that. I'd probably just take my coil and roll it out. Once again, that's really crazy for the speed on this thing, and make it a little bit thinner so it's tapered, right? We want a little bit of a tapered effect on that. Round this piece up over here. Now I probably need a little bit of a flat piece as well, and to make this a little bit more pointy on the head, so I'm going to squish this down and just kind of mold it and shape it. I often have students say, well, how do you make an elephant? Or how do you make a shark or something? Or how do you make a guinea pig? And I was like, you kind of get a picture of a guinea pig and you make it look like the guinea pig. There's the sculpture I have for you, besides the additive effect. The additive effect works really good for the 3-dimensional qualities, but you are just trying to mimic something that you see, and it doesn't have to, it could be kind of whatever you want. So then I have the body, something like that. That's kind of a cool deal. And let's say that he's going to go right here. I think I have some scoring stuff here to where I can score it and slip it. Let me get just a little bit of water. Hold on. Slip works really good on stuff, but here's an alternative approach on those. So I'm going to take this guy here. I think before I add him on, though, I think I want to add the tail fin on that one. And so I'm going to roll this out again and maybe make it into a kind of a cone shape. Like that. And then I'm going to squish it out. So it's kind of a tail shape. Like that. And then if we want it split, maybe what we do is this. Something like that. And then I'm going to shape it a little bit further into the shape I'm looking for. So that's going to have kind of a V tail on it, right? That's a cool deal. And then I want to take this, I'm just going to dip that in a little bit of water. I really wanted this blended a little bit more, so I'm going to overlap it here. And then I'm just going to blend this piece by pulling the clay across onto it like we did with our coil construction technique, right? And so I'm blending that in here. Make that look a little bit more. Flip it over here, blend this in. So when you're adding pieces together like that, you can use some of your coil techniques for keeping them so they'll stay together by doing a blended sort of a surface. Okay, so now I have my fishy tail, something like that. Now for joining them together, once again scoring and slipping, and so I'm going to take here and I'm going to score the bottom like that, and then it's going to go right here, and so I'm just going to draw a little bit of a line on there, and so I know that it's just to the inside of that line, and I'm going to score this surface here as well. Now here's a deal. I think I have a brush floating around somewhere. Hold on. No brush. Hold on. So this is just water right here. And so if you take just water and you put it into the surface like that, and then you score it a second time, what this is doing is this is mixing the clay together and making a slip on the surface. Sometimes you find that water will work pretty good, or your slip container's all dried out, right? And it doesn't have any as much use for you. That's just water. And then this is almost like mixing. I'm mixing up the clay with the tip of the needle tool and making it so that there's actually a slip surface in there and a scored surface all at the same time. So when I put these together, they'll stay. Okay. So there's layer number 2, right? We talked about. And maybe I come back here and I put some little pieces in the tail. And maybe it comes down here. He needs some eyes or something. So he has some eyes. That's kind of cool. Okay, then I needed fins for the side, right? Let me get a little bit of clay here. And so just a little chunk of clay. You'll notice we're not using a lot of clay. Shape it into a triangle shape, sort of a deal, and maybe a little bit of a swept triangle. And let's say this guy's, let's say he's going to go right there. Okay, that'd be a cool place, right? And so then I'm going to come back here once again, like I said, score the surface. I'm going to score this a little bit. There's not much to score there, but if I can then come back in, just a dab of water there, and then mix up that surface. So I say, okay, it's going to go right there. I'm mixing the slip surface. If your slip's already mixed, you can just kind of stick it and be ready to go. And so that's maybe a layer number 3, right? 1, 2, 3 different layers on that. And so you can do more than 3. And then so this piece is going to go over here. That needs to be a little smaller, huh, compared with that one. Now I'm doing this a little quicker, and you can take your time to make it a little bit more clean, a little bit more neat on those. Score the surface. I just have a couple more parts that I wanted to do on this quicker medallion. Obviously, you're looking at it here and say, wow, you can do that in 15 minutes. Yeah, you can do something in 15 minutes. It might not get as many points as something that takes more time, but you could do it. And then take and putting this in here. Get a little higher there. That's cool. And then I'm just going to take, and I'm actually going to push this on and kind of blend it in a little bit, so we have those little fins on the side. Last one for this is like layer 4, right? Or layer 3, depending on your, as we wanted a dorsal fin on that. And so let's say that this is going to be going something here. Wow, that's huge, Mr. White, you're right. Okay, hold on. A little smaller, a little smaller. This was almost like a killer whale or something there for a minute. Maybe this goes right here. So that's going to be definitely 3 different layers when I have that. So we got 1, 2, 3, maybe in here, 4 here, 3 to 4 layers that we're going to have. Then I got to score it and slip it. Right? So there's the scoring. And then mix the water or the slip, and then we can stick them together here. Now this one as well, I can take and I can blend this down onto the surface so it looks more of a part of the piece. And take time to do just a little bit of cleanup on that. And so now I have, as far as what this looks like here, we have some 3-dimensional qualities to it, right? Done pretty quick. The last thing I want, if it is truly a medallion and it's going to hang from a necklace or something like that, is you probably want to put a hole in it. And so I've just pushed that in here, rotate that around a little bit. Now, it looks pretty clean on this side, but it has a little bit of an eruption on the back side where this clay kind of sticks out. If you can just take and clean that off and clean that up, that way you won't have any sharp edges on your piece. And that's what kind of makes it a medallion, is you could hang it from a string or something like that. And so I could also put some surface texture. That'd probably be cool to put some sort of scales or something on the fish itself. Probably done that before we get the dorsal fin on, but we could put a surface texture on. That would be way cool. And just finish it out like that. So that would be an example of a medallion project. This thing, if it would probably dry overnight because it's small, it's thin. There might be some areas here where it's a little bit thicker in the body, and as such have to dry out a little bit longer depending on how you make it. But that's the idea of what I'd like you to do for your medallion project, is being able to just make a small sculpture. Medallion or small sculpture is what we're after on those. And like I said, should take you a day or two. Shouldn't take much more time than that. But it's better than sitting around looking at each other grow old, right? For stuff to do. Or cleaning. We will do some cleaning on this. I guess I should add that as the last thing that I would like you to do as well. I give usually about 5 points for cleaning out your lockers. And then usually another 5 points for an additional cleanup assignment. So if you have everything out of your lockers and you'd like to check that off, just come find me. I'll walk over there. I'll put a little check mark by your name or a 5 by your name on my seating chart. That way I know that you've cleaned out your locker. You'll want to take all the pieces out. You want to take a sponge and wipe it down. Generally, there's not much stuff in there. Maybe just a little bit of debris from the projects you guys have been working on. But usually there's not much stuff. But I do want to check it off that the stuff's been emptied out so that there's not me cleaning out every locker at the end of the school year, because that's kind of a bad deal for those. So we want to make sure everybody, and plus you want to take your stuff home. Now, as you clean it out and check it off, if you need to put another glaze piece back in there, something like that, to come pick up at the end of the day, that's all right. You know, I'm okay with that sort of a thing. But some people have like tools and clothes and clay and a whole horde of stuff in their lockers, and we don't want all that stuff left in there. And so please make sure that you clean out your locker and then check it off with me so you can get your cleanup points like we would do for the wheel on those. And that's kind of where we are. Building these things this week. If you're sanding or filing or cleaning up a project like your box, that's okay. If you're glazing, that's fantastic. We want you to glaze your stuff. So between glazing, a little bit of cleanup on some of maybe your box or so, making the medallion, that should take us through this week and into next week. Now, if you do get finished, you might want to bring a book or something like that, so you have something to do, because some people will get done, you know, and you won't have anything specifically you can do on those. So bring something to read. You can obviously work on stuff from another class. I'm pretty open on that. The only thing that I don't want is I really don't want you guys on phone games, computer games, those sort of things. That's really not what I want to have happening in my classroom. So if you could at least just follow that little bit of stuff. You can make more than one medallion too. You want to make a set for you and your mom, so you could have a matching thing, or you, a brother and sister, or something like that. Make a matching set. I've seen people do, you know, it's kind of corny, but the broken heart thing. You can have heart, I have that sort of stuff. You can, a yin yang thing, right? Or you have a little bit of a symbol of a yin yang, one for one, one for the other type of stuff. You could do something like that. Or you can have just both of you have, you know, matching turtle medallions, right? It's your, you know, you shared a trip to SeaWorld or something like that, and you wanted matching turtles, or you just like geckos or something. You could have matching medallions or something like that for you and your younger brother, as a gift, or to help cement those bonds and stuff a little bit more. That's really about it as far as the small sculpture project that we're working on, and of course doing your glazing. All right. Let's see. I gotta kill this thing. If I do this, I just better do that.